Welcome to the Digital Insurance Agent Podcast. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me today. And with me is Curtis Barton from Alkeme. Curtis, so glad you've chosen to join us today.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Curtis, let's dive right in. You didn't start as a platform CEO. You actually built and carried a real book of business. And
Imagine that.
so let's dive right in there. Let's talk about life in the trenches to begin with, and then we'll take off from there.
Certainly a different world than today, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, candidly, like we talked about, I didn't even want to be in the insurance business. So my father happened to be in the business and sold his brokerage, and I was going to be an attorney. And thank God I dodged that direction, and he convinced me to come on over. And yeah, so I did everything in an insurance agency, literally from take out the trash to building a book. But back then it was like hardcore. It was like he threw you in a conference room with a book of manufacturer, and you said call, make 100 calls a day, and come back and report to me any progress, set appointments, and you'll learn from me. And that's kind of how I learned at his hip. And he was a great sales guy, had a great book and tremendous clients, 34 plus years and tenure, and taught me a lot of good things. And I always wanted to take it a step above what he had done. And so, I one thing he did, he really focused on niches. And early on with not digging in too deep, but the CNA used to have these CAM programs, and he wrote a lot of the business through the CAM programs. And he's like, you got a niche, that's the best spot. And so that's kind of where I dialed in, and I grew a book to about 2.5 million in revenue top line. And the book itself, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth, was just really specializing and building from the ground up.
So you just unpacked several gold nuggets. So I'm gonna slow you down, and we're gonna hit those for a
Good
minute.
luck.
So so dialing for dollars, smiling and dialing is a lost art form.
Nobody does
And
it.
and so I want to talk about how that experience shaped the way you think about agency growth today.
Taught me, I would say it shaped a lot of things. I mean, honestly, it taught me what I didn't want to do and what I wanted to do. And so what I didn't want to do was sit and have to dial 150 cold calls a day and have people scream and yell at me and tell me they don't have time to deal with me. And you have to have real thick skin, right? And so I had to really be creative. And since I didn't like cold calling as much, I started to get, in my mind, I started to figure out, hey, how else can I get clients to come to me? How can I become a subject matter expert? And that's kind of how I started to build my book, was really thinking about, so I want to educate them first on the insurance that surrounds their business. And I want to have a call to action every time with every piece of education. And so basically I became the go-to guy for the ready mix industry in California and security guard industry in California.
Hmm.
And I just drove a ton of educational content at big groups of people, took every opportunity to go to their events, took every opportunity to get in front of them, and then tried to create a flywheel in which leads would come to me as opposed to the opposite, which is leads me trying to generate leads off the phone. So, I mean, I know this sounds so funny to say today because I half the people that listen to this will just laugh, but I created a fax like literally in 1997, and it had all the details of our security guard program we were representing at the time, and I faxed it out to every security guard in California and said, if you want more information, give me a call or send me an email. And the amount of response I got was tremendous. And then it was just about getting better at your craft and learning how to actually sell them into a win as opposed to selling yourself out of a win. And
Hmm.
that takes time and growth. And so
Hmm.
it builds muscle memory too. And I think the biggest thing is with any young producer, I'd always say, one, find a niche. You always have to have a niche. Do not be a generalist. It's just a bad way to go. You have no differentiators in the marketplace. You're not creating value for anybody at that point. You're just splattering. And then the second is consistency. Come in every day with a purpose. What's your purpose that day? And stay on it and stay consistent. And if you do the right things and you put in the right action, you usually will get the right result. Usually, unless you're really bad at what you do. And
Hmm.
so I think that taught me a lot about that, is like, hey, one, let's be creative. I don't like cold calling. How do I fix that? I solve for it in a weird way. And we took it even a further. We started to like front label all of our programs. Like all of our producers in our office had a different niche. And so like we had buysecurityguardinsurance.com. way back when. I'm talking like 100 years ago, and then Google switched around. You couldn't do direct hits. So then we moved it to Guard Pro. And that website was all about security guards. It had nothing to do with anything else. You couldn't even tie it back to my legacy agency, which is my agency that I sold into Alkeme, which is called Venture Pacific. And you automatically create yourself as a subject matter expert when you go out with that type of front facing look, right? And so it made me seem like I was the expert from day one. They took calls more readily at that point, and they knew who I was through my educational process, which is, again, I always tell my producers, be that resource. Continue to drip information into their lap that's pertinent to them. And now with the tools today, holy moly. I mean, the stuff that we're doing with our producers, and we're able to drive all this content creation and everything, we're able to do that automatically through AI. You don't even have to touch a button. It's doing it for you while you sleep. I mean, it's a beautiful world to be a producer in this, in my opinion, in today's environment, as opposed to the old way. Because
Absolutely.
call reluctancy is a serious thing, as you know, especially in the generations, as I like to say.
Exactly. So, having that perspective, what is something that you understand now about agency owners that most corporate leaders don't?
I know what makes them tick, and I know what their pride. I know, when I step into a room, like I've hired enough producers in my life, and I've been around the rim enough in my life to understand predictive analysis quickly. I can analyze who they are, what they are, and where their problems are, just because I've been around them enough, and I am one of them. So I know who's full of it. I hate to say it that way, and I know who's actually right there, and I know who's doing it right. And so I can really peel through that very quick, peel that onion back really quickly. Whereas a lot of like, and I'm not here to bag on anybody, but a lot of these companies are created by financial engineers who've never sold insurance. So they don't really understand like what makes that guy better besides a CAGR that goes like this, compounding annual growth rate that goes up and to the right. And it's like there's more than that. It's like what is driving them? What are they doing that's different? What differentiates them when they say that they're gonna be able to put on, $500,000 in new business revenue? Are they really? Or are they gonna put on 50,000? And so I feel like, I think one of the things people like about me is that I am one of them and I sat in their chair. And so I've seen the problems they've seen, from labor to production to a dollar coming in and figuring out, hey, how do I mean, today's seat, I mean, it's really complicated for an insurance agency owner. It's like, I got to invest in things. Where do I invest? Or do you invest? And a lot of these guys, and women that run these businesses are lifestyle people. And it's hard for them to reinvest. They don't really reinvest in the technology. They don't really reinvest in the systems. They really don't reinvest in the standard operating procedures. And these are things that make you drive efficiencies across your organization that over time will yield a result. That'll be better than you just playing, hey, fast and loose. Let's figure out how to write some business and see how much I can take home. Right.
Hmm.
If you want to be a company, you got to form a company. And I always say that it's like, a lot of people don't grow a company the right way, which is putting a lot of the money back into the company and reinvesting in it to make sure you hit the next levels, and then look for an out later on in life. They're just constantly taking their out all the way through. And so, and that's fine, to each their own. I don't judge anybody in the way they approach their business because it's their business, right? And so I think I can relate to them, and I can talk coverage with them. I can joke around with them, if we get in the right area, and I can actually talk about some of my stuff that I did, and we can laugh about it, and it just makes my job easier.
That's good. So a lot of independent agencies, hit this ceiling between that 5 and $10 million mark in revenue. And based on your experience, what actually causes an agency to stall out at that level?
I mean, I think it's a fear of reinvestment into the company and them having to actually have their pay halt or retreat. I think a lot of agency owners, again, don't understand where to put the money, where to put the investment, what drives value, what drives true existential value in a business. And it's because a lot of them have bootstrapped it, right? They've come out of another agency and they've taken that playbook from that agency and they've sat it down on their agency. And they're like, well, I didn't like this piece, but the rest of it looks pretty good. I'm going to run with that. And I think the winners and the losers are going to be sorted really by who is embracing the future and tackling it in a thoughtful manner and setting their business up for success if they want an exit that's going to be meaningful. And that's for any level. And that comes from the smallest of small to the largest of large. You can't have a loose consortium of people that operate in their own space and don't have any cohesive nature to it because the carriers don't like that. The service people don't like that. There's no consistency within the organization. And then the reinvestment into tools and like getting your data correct, man. Data is everything in this world. If people don't get to that point where they understand, like, why is that everything? Because what are you going to do if you don't understand what you're doing? And how do you know where to go if you don't even know where to start? If you can't lift up your hood and see what's underneath there, then what are you doing? How are you going to grow your business effectively? And I call that, at that point, you're just splatter selling. You're just hoping for the best, and you're just a lot of gravity brokers, just waiting for something to fall from the ceiling and hit you in the lap and ride it,
Yeah.
and have a plan, set it out. How do I get there? And each layer is incrementally harder. And I've been all the way up to $11 million on my own. And I know exactly how hard each layer was. And I know too, like, you've got to think differently in terms of be thoughtful about the approach to the business too. It's like, take care of your people, 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 because your people take care of your clients, and your clients are the most important thing that you have because you're in business and you exist because of them. So you got to have a happy workforce. And I can tell you an example. In 2008, we were a construction based firm. We had tons of construction. 2008 hit, and it was like, whoa. I mean, we had to cut checks back into the company to keep payroll going because we didn't want to let people go because we're having a bobble in the economy, because there was, a problem in the construction side of the business, and we were heavily weighted towards that. So we kept it going. We floated them, and that created loyalty, and loyalty creates and breeds excellence, and I think that that's something that people really need to think about is like, hey, if I cut here, how does that affect my client's journey, one, and then how does it affect my people on the desk? Are they doing meaningful work? Are they doing work that they feel fulfilled in? Or are they just pushing electronic paper?
Yeah.
Um, and we always trained our account managers and account executives to think like owners and to start to watch the book like owners and start to really try to operate their desk as if they had an active part in the business. And then soon enough they had equity, and we'd give them equity, and that equity alignment's massive because now they've got a piece of the puzzle, and now they understand what the end result yields, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and this is so important in our initial conversation. We talked a lot about culture. And one of the things that you said was, culture isn't a slogan, it's actually operational. And for, a local PNC agency, what does culture really look like day to day when it's working?
Yeah, I mean, look, are you a leader too? I mean, that's another big part of it, right? Like if you're out and you're leaving the office at 11 o'clock every day because you want to go play golf, I mean, that's your choice. But are your people going to be happy that you get to go do all that and they feel like they're doing the brunt of the work? I mean, you got to kind of put yourself into the coal mines with them, right? And that's the way I've always thought about it. That's why I built Alkeme really was because I wanted to own an operator's model where you roll up your sleeves and you get dirty with everybody. And I understand it's a sophisticated business and we continue to grow. Things change and there's things that you have to do that are more institutionalized, and that's good. And that's good for smaller businesses too. Just small changes that can change the trajectory of your business forward can be so meaningful. And culture is how you show up, how you approach people, how you treat situations. Are you putting yourself in their shoes? Are you understanding what occurred? Did you have a part in it? It's either structural or it's behavioral, right? And sometimes both. And that's the way I always look at it. So you got to look at it. Are you providing the right structure, and are we incentivizing the right behaviors in the business? And if you're doing it correctly, things should be good on both sides. Culture is a living, breathing thing that you cannot define. I don't believe you can define in a paragraph.
Yeah.
It's how you approach people. It's how you deal with situations. It's your mannerisms. It's how you treat people. You got to treat the person that works at the front desk as well as you've got to treat your CFO, in my opinion. And you've got to understand that because they're the first voice of contact that anybody sees. They're the first person. You want them happy, right? And that sets the tone. That sets the tone for your employees, and that sets the tone for everybody else. And so we've just been very blessed to have the right people. We got 1,500 people strong. We've got a great workforce. And by and part, you're not gonna have everyone on the same page all the time. I'm not gonna say that, but you try to get as many people singing from the same hymnal as you possibly can,
Mhm.
and get them to buy into it. And it's easy to sell when it's right, when it feels good. And I can tell you that. And you've probably dealt with that in your life. And when you work in a bad spot versus when you work in a good spot, you know the difference.
Yeah. So along those lines, what's the one cultural habit that you've seen that separates strong agencies from just average agencies?
I think it's having the right people at the table and being able to really, I heard this a long time ago, and it's such a truism. It's be slow to hire, quick to fire. Don't let someone drain your culture from you. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, take time with your hires, make sure you're getting the right person, make sure you have well-defined job descriptions, make sure everyone understands what their role is, what the expectation set is, and getting people on board. And if it's not working, and if they become toxic or if they become a problematic employee, you've got to separate from them for them and for you. Sometimes you're doing them the biggest favor in the world by letting them go. But you have a toxic employee that sits in your agency can drain the culture out overnight if you don't watch it, especially in a small agency. It's a lot harder in a bigger agency, but a small agency, you can have that. And we used to call them queen bees. The queen bee scenario can really be damaging, and it can really take an agency. And I've seen it multiple times. Can take an agency from a great agency into a sub performer overnight.
Hmm. Very well said. So a lot of independent agents hear words like platform or private equity or roll up, and immediately they start to get defensive. So what do you think most agency owners misunderstand about scale and partnerships?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, in terms of, private equity, it was a boogeyman, right? It's always going to remain the boogeyman. The big office ivory towers mentalities, the boogeyman. It was for me too. Trust me, I had people chasing me to buy my agency for a lot of years, and I kept saying no, 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 no. But you get to a point where you start to realize that as people get absorbed around you, which will happen over time, and there's about a 6 month time window where you get the benefit of that because people are shook, and sometimes you get a hire. But once scale kicks in and resource kicks in and technology kicks in and all these things that these other smaller agencies just can't get to from a dollar perspective, you start to lose because they're able to offer more. They're able to bring more to the table. They're able to bring better benefits to the table, which means they can make better hires. They've got money to spend on business intelligence. They got money to spend on recruiting. They got money to spend on marketing. And that you cannot out, I don't care how great you grow as a $5 million shop, you'll never catch the scale of a 350 million plus revenue agency ever in a million years. And trust me, I modeled mine out 1,000 different ways with 1,000 different assumptions to try to figure out like what would my agency look like at all levels. And the other thing I'd highly suggest for people is like don't lever up yourself. Don't take on a bunch of crazy debt and try to do micro acquisitions when that's not your game, right? If you're going to do that, take the money and put it back into investment in your company, back into solidifying good solid leads in the appropriate funnels and niches that you're going towards. But there is no brass ring in this business that you can just grab onto and solve for all problems. But yeah, you know, again, private equity sits behind the scenes, so they're not in your table. They're not sitting in your room. And you talk to, we've done 82 deals, and you talk to 82 of our partners. It's not like private equity sitting in top of their room. The thing that changes is they get more resource, they get more structure, they get some deeper leadership that can actually help them, and then they get the IP of, and I call it the connective kind of tissue that binds us all, of all this now 1,500 employees that can actually stand behind you and formatively prop you up on a deal if you need the help, right? And that's different. That's a different conversation than when you're, hey, I'm Curtis Barton Insurance and it's me. And that's great. And I got you got my cell phone number and you can call me. But if I can't return your call, what does it matter, right? So to me, I think it's a lot of that. And I get it. Like people are really nervous about control. You know, I don't want to lose control. And I got news for everybody out there. Control is an illusion in any environment you live in. If you ever think you have control, you've lost it.
That's good. So you brought up, today's world is moving so quickly, AI and automation everywhere, weekly, new amazing capabilities. I had a meeting with my team. I've been staying up till 3:30, 4:30 in the morning for about the past 5 or 6 days, just
Been on clock,
building
huh?
building new stuff. And I'm like a kid in a candy store, Curtis. I
Totally.
mean, I can't sleep at night. And so a lot of agency staff are nervous because of this technology. So, how should independent agencies be thinking about technology without damaging morale or culture?
Yeah. So again, I go back to two things. One is I think technology can really become a force multiplier in the business. And so like when you have a good employee, it can make that employee times 10, and that's good for your business. I think that's a huge part of it. If you're an employee working in an environment and you're highly manual in what you do, you should learn and study how not to be highly manual, how to pick up on some of these tools, and come to the table with your leaders and say, hey, I think maybe this is something we should explore. But yeah, I mean, I think what I really feel is like people want meaningful commitments to their jobs. That's why people move around so much, is because they don't feel like they're getting what they want out of their work, right? When you come in and you put in a 12-hour day and you feel fulfilled, it's okay to put in a 12-hour day. But when you put in a 12-hour day and you feel like you haven't even moved the mountain at all, that doesn't feel good. And so what we really want to do is take the sludge, we call it sludge work, off of the AMs and account executives desks, and really get them more front facing with the client, get them thinking about, hey, how do we be proactive risk managers instead of reactive risk managers? And there's a big difference between the two. And if you don't know that, then you should probably go back and think about that for a second, because that's something to really ponder. But issuing a certificate of insurance within 24 hours, that's kind of table stakes. That's not really proactive. That's really reactive. That's something that you have to do. But now, if you get into their business, you're saying, hey, I see that you do this, this, and this. How can I help you with all this resource I've got around me to get those risk areas covered and assessed for you? Can I bring someone in to talk to you? Can we come in and help you out? Just give you an overview, and then they get more when they start to get more engaged in that type of process, their thinking changes dramatically. And you want people to be happy again with their jobs, because that really will translate directly into retention. And we're all in this business for retention. And we all know that in the last 15 years, retention's gone down because people are more active shoppers, right? They're not as loyal. And that's because of everyone wants everything now, today, this second, last second. I want it all, right? And again, look for quality clients. Don't be afraid to walk away from clients that don't make sense for your business.
Mm.
You write bad business, it can hurt your morale. You know, don't let people treat your people poorly, no matter how good of a client they are. The second that happens, you as a leader, you need to step in and neutralize that as quickly as you possibly can. And that's part of the producer's job too, obviously, besides just going out and hunting. But yeah, I mean, look, AI is definitely going to put pressure down on our business, right? And it's a big hot button now. Everyone's talking about AI, right? Like you said, but it's a seesaw thing. I mean, do I think some of the business will be eroded by AI? Sure. But is it the business you really want to write that's going to get hit with AI? I mean, if someone's going into ChatGPT and using an app, attaching to it and binding a quote or buying insurance through that type of functionality, they're going to do that every year. So now it's not really a renewable, reoccurring revenue mindset. Now you're in a churn and burn mindset. Now you're just trying to outpace every year. You're losing and you're growing, losing, growing, losing, growing. Beautiful part about this business is the retention and growth on top of it. And that's why we're seeing, sluggish, you're seeing sluggish organic growth, frankly, driven, part of it's by rate, part of it's by technology, part of it's by more offerings. And have you seen, as you've seen the business change? I mean, it used to be a big thing to get like a Safeco appointment, right? And it was like, wow, I got a Safeco appointment. Your fire mark, and you put it up on the wall, and you're real proud. And I represent Safeco. Now there's 100 different ways to get to that same carrier. I don't mean to pick on Safeco. I just one that came to mind. But that's where I went to the Safeco Commercial School of Insurance. So I'll give a nod there. I spent 30 days up in Seattle doing that. But I think, now it's like there's so many distribution points. It's just a matter of, you can get to a market, but what are you going to give up to get there? How much money are you going to give up? How much control are you going to give up? And that's what people really need to wrap their heads around. And again, I'm the biggest fan of entrepreneurs. So like I'm not here to tell anybody they need to sell their business because that's a personal decision that you make. You know, I do believe that businesses are built to be sold at some point, and I think some people don't look at it like that. They think it's just something to be built in eternity. And as you get older, what happens is your attention starts to drift down and it's a depreciating asset at some point. And so unless you have a plan in place that you've well thought out perpetuation plan, you should get in as early as you can and start thinking about those things and say, hey, I don't want to work till I'm 72 selling insurance. Now, how do I figure out the best possible way for me to transition the business either to my staff, which is a hard thing to do because you're putting debt on them, or how do I transition it by finding the right partner that's good for my business and my people that fit my people culturally. And again, we're not everybody's cup of tea. I think people like us a lot, but it's just it's a personal thing, you
Mm,
know.
good. So you mentioned organic growth, and you talk a lot about this retention, cross-selling, productivity, not just acquisition. And why is organic growth still the foundation, especially for an agency? And if you can kind of delve into that.
I mean, organic growth is everything. I mean, if you're not, I mean, look, books, even if you have a 98% retention, which I would like to see who's actually holding a 98% retention. But, I mean, if you have a 95% retention, you're losing 5% every year. So why is organic growth important? Because just to stay neutral, you got to grow by 5%,
Hmm.
right? And if you want to grow, then you got to grow by another 5 or 10 or 15. And so I think, on a larger scale basis, like the way that we operate, organic growth, $1 of organic growth fuels $7 of capacity to go out and actually acquire inorganic growth, right? Go buy agencies. And so they go hand in hand. If your organic growth drains down, like we're seeing right now, to some of them are in like sub 1%, that's a bad place to be because you can't grow fast enough to sustain debt to buy anything else. So you're kind of in this limbo effect of going, okay, now what? Now what do I do? And sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. And it's another saying that we have a lot is like, let's slow down so we can move faster. And so we always think organic growth is really it's the thing that makes everything go. I mean, without organic growth, you have no value in your business.
Mm,
Now you're just a block of business that you're selling.
that's it. So, Curtis, if you were speaking directly to a $3 to $7 million a year agent right now, agency owner, what's the one mindset shift and the one operational change they should be focusing on in the next 12 months?
I would say from an operational perspective, strong operational procedures to be like a car. When you get in a car, unless it's a stick shift, you know, um, basically you know how to drive that car, any car. Doesn't matter if it's a SUV, truck, whatever it is. There's a brake, there's a gas pedal, steering wheel, park drive, whatever. That's how every desk should operate and think is you got to have guardrails in terms of how you operate your business strategically so that you can then have people support you when you need overflow. Everybody runs on the same tracks. It just makes things a lot more efficient. So I think about your procedures because a lot of people will hire people and they'll drag in something from their agency that they worked at prior and they run their system differently. Producers have a tendency, because I am one of them, to push their own agendas down onto account managers and try to shift them off of operational procedures because they want to move faster, right? And then the second one is from a growth perspective is reinvest in yourself, man. Like reinvest. Like don't take every commission dollar home because that won't last forever. Take that money and put it in directions that can actually create value that's repeatable for your firm. Not a lot of people do that. Get yourself on a system that's meaningful, something that has teeth to it. Get your data collected in a way that you can actually understand it. Get it set up so that you're ready to go and you have the optionality then to make the move when the time comes to say, I'm ready at this point now to go ahead and sell my business and I'm structurally there. Not only am I in one system, my data is consistent, my operational procedures are persistent or consistent, my expectations are consistent, my performance is consistent, and that leads to better valuation. When
Mm,
you have agencies that don't do that, you find out really quickly, and it's quite frighteningly. I mean, it will frighten you how many agencies you walk into that don't even have a proper accounting system.
yeah.
And you're like, whoa. I mean, they're just looking at bank accounts. That's it. And you're going, that's not a way to run a business. How do you forecast, budget, do things that a mature company would do? If you want to be a mature company, build it as if it's going to be a mature company, and then get good leadership around you. Get people that you want. I always say hire people that want to take your job.
Mm,
And I think that people get scared to do that and they hire down. And that's like the anvil around your neck. If you hire down, you're going to sink yourself.
mm,
Hire up, bring people in that lift you up and give them equity. Give people equity, even if it's a little bit. Figure out a way to get some equity involvement into their hands so that they feel part of the game. It's like, hey, not, oh man, Curtis, he's got this, he's got that, he's so lucky, this, that, and the other. You don't want that type of attitude in the business. You want people to feel like, okay, I've got a part of that too. And at the end of the year, if we do well, I'm going to get to partake in some of that.
that's good. That's good. And then looking forward, what do you think is going to differentiate the agencies that thrive over the next decade from those that struggle?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I really do believe it's going to circle around how do you efficiently drive AI into your business the right way? And I don't say that just because it's the buzzword, but it's a force multiplier in your business. And that'll give you the ability to hyperbolically grow not only your service capacity, but hyperbolically grow your production as well. And so, really, really embracing change, being a student of change, understanding change. Don't be scared of it. Read a ton of books. I mean, gosh, how many times do you hear CEOs stand up and say, read? I
Hmm.
read, I read tons of books. I mean, I listen to more than I read, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And with my ADHD, I kind of put it up to 2x, and my wife thinks I'm crazy when I do it. So she's always making fun of me because it's going
there's two of us.
at hyper speed. Um, and just, hey, listen, you have to take every piece as gospel. Just take what you need from it and leave behind what you don't want. And then, I think that's huge. And then get into working groups, like get into groups with other people that are like kind of quality, and see how they're operating too, and start to share. We're not splitting the atom here. There's nothing that you're doing that's so crazy that I can't share with you what I'm doing. Like everyone's like, oh, the way I do it's so special. And it's like, nah, not really.
Yeah.
But there are jams that people have solved. And if you can solve a jam for them and they can solve a jam for you, you both are better by that.
Well said. So, Curtis, if somebody wants to learn more about you, learn more about alchemy, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, so two things. I mean, look, I'm a highly approachable person. So you can email me at cbarton@alkemyins.com, cbarton@alkemyins.com. I'll take that and forward that to the appropriate person. I'm on every M&A call. So in terms of that, I can always route stuff around. Go to our website, alkemyins.com. And you can learn more about us. You can study on us, follow us on LinkedIn. You can get a good history of understanding how we're moving as you can see it in LinkedIn in real time, who we're buying, who we're hiring, where we're moving, what we're doing. Um, yeah, there's a ton of different ways. Link in with me. Go ahead and do that as well. And again, as you can tell, I'm not like, I don't sit in ivory towers as much as people would love to say that we do. I don't. Um, and I try to get back to as many people as I possibly can within the given moment. But we have a whole team that does it too. So um, my thing is like, look, education is power. Learn, digest as much as you can within the industry, and then take meetings with people like myself and understand what's out there and understand the power of why. And I go back to it all the time. And it's like, look, when we talk about any big decision of the company, we tether it to the reason why. Why are we doing what we're doing? We want people to understand fully and completely, clear-headedly, why we're going forward in a direction that we're headed and how that's going to benefit them. Okay. If we're going to ask people to do something, we need them to understand why. So tether everybody to why. That's all I'd say too.
Excellent. Curtis, thanks for taking time out today to just share your insights and your experiences with us. And for our audience, thanks for tuning in to the Digital Insurance Agent Podcast. And we look forward to having you on our next episode.
Yeah, shoot me an email. Let's go.
All right.
Cheers.